Good morning, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for the 25th of September 2012. A look at the eastern Atlantic. You can see Tropical Storm Nadine way up here still hanging out in the eastern Atlantic, not too far off the northwest coast of Africa, and for that matter, not too far off the Iberian Peninsula here of Spain and Portugal. The storm has been on the map since September the 11th. And it has wound its way all over the eastern Atlantic here due to basically a blocking pattern up north that's not allowing it to turn and head on out to sea. That'll probably remain the case over the next several days, for the next 5 days at least. Very slow movement overall, just milling around out here, piling up those accumulated cyclone energy index points. Not too many because it's not strong. The stronger a hurricane or tropical storm, well, specifically a hurricane, is, the more ace points you have. And obviously Nadine only about 50 miles per hour, so it's not very strong at the moment. The rest of the Atlantic basin, everything's looking pretty good. Still lots of dry air, as you would imagine, pretty much dominating the tropical Atlantic in the mid-levels. There's a tropical wave moving through the eastern Caribbean. None of the global computer models indicating development in the Atlantic basin over the next week to 10 days, and we do have a stalled out frontal boundary once again sitting over the Gulf of Mexico, portions of the southwest Atlantic. Very dry fall-like air behind that cold front, and this will reverse. We'll get the Bermuda high to set up a little bit, and you get that return flow coming around in the next few days, and that'll bring humid, muggy conditions back after this most recent taste of fall. In the eastern Pacific, Hurricane Miriam going to move more to the north and then eventually come up into the Baja as a much weakened system. One big benefit of this hurricane, and you can already see a little bit of moisture starting to stream out of it now, more of this moisture should come north and maybe get into western Texas over here after crossing Mexico. Some of those mountains will certainly wring out some of that tropical moisture, but if we can dig this trough into the western United States enough and turn this into Mexico as a weak system, this may bring some much needed rainfall to portions of Mexico itself and eventually maybe even western Texas. Looking out in the western Pacific, remember, you can track tropical cyclones all around the globe with Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and they do a good job with those tracking maps, and they are tracking Typhoon Jelawat, and it's way out here in the western Pacific in the Philippine Sea. This is Taiwan right up here, and this, folks, is a Category 5 typhoon. It's if it was a hurricane, it would be a Cat 5. Top winds of last report were 160 miles per hour. This is the track map from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, and right now 140 knots, which is 160 miles per hour or so, and you can see the track towards Taiwan here. This is Taiwan, and then a turn off to the northeast, getting very, very close to Okinawa and possibly moving up towards Japan. Probably going to stay east of Japan, hopefully, but it'll be much weaker up that far north. Sea surface temperatures cooling and a trough impacting it, so there should be some shear, just like we have in the Atlantic Basin. When you see a tropical cyclone turning, it's usually because of a trough digging in to boot it out, and ahead of that trough you do have southwesterly winds, and so this should get sheared a little bit, and it would only be about 70 knots when it's sitting here just to the south of the southwest portion of Japan. But nonetheless, another very powerful typhoon. This is typical of an El Nino season, although we're not really in an El Nino. The Pacific is behaving kind of strange in that regard. But you typically do see a lot of these big typhoons in an El Nino type year, and they've had a lot of them out there in the western Pacific during the 2012 season. When might things get busy again in the Atlantic Basin, aside from Nadine? Well, if you look at the MJO forecast from the Euro, the operational run there right down the middle showing almost no MJO activity. When you have everything inside of this circle, the amplitude or the ability for that MJO to really be prominent is severely limited. You really look for it to be amplified out closer to the edges here. It's very difficult to explain what all of this means, but basically when you see the MJO inside this circle, it's virtually non-detectable. And right now it's sitting out over in the Western Pacific area, and it's going to remain in that area for a while and then just kind of go away according to the Euro. There's some of the Euro ensemble members that you can see right here that do bring it out a little bit more into some favorable areas for the Atlantic Basin, but not very many, and certainly not the operational model down the middle here. So we may get into October, and without an enhanced MJO, it's going to be difficult for anything to develop. And who knows, that might be it for the hurricane season. I highly doubt it. I just think that the combination of climatology, perhaps a more favorable MJO pulse, and the very warm sea surface temperatures that still remain in the Western Caribbean, it just seems to me that sometime in October we will see at least one more hurricane develop west of 75 degrees longitude, south of 20 degrees north latitude in the Western Caribbean is what I'm getting at. So nothing for the next few days, that's for sure. I'm going to be hitting the road working with one of my colleagues to work on a documentary that we are producing about hurricane history and the impacts of hurricanes on America and their lasting legacies. So these video updates will still be produced, but they'll be produced while we're on the road using our iPhone to shoot the screen graphics and whatnot. So be looking for that over the next week to 10 days. We'll still have these videos, but a slightly different way of producing them. Kind of like being out on a field mission without the hurricane. So be on the lookout for that. Should be interesting. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. Always a pleasure to produce these videos for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD. And I'll see you over the next week or so from the road.